Baby dill pickles is probably one of me and Boo's favorite things to eat. And today I've got to go get the cucumbers so I can start making the baby dills. My cucumbers are starting to take off on me, so I'm trying to keep them up out of the aisleways as much as possible, but good problem to have. I'm growing different kinds of cucumber varieties. This is my first year growing these particular ones. They are called mini me cucumbers. They do get bigger, but I've been trying to come out and pick them about this size because I kind of think that's about the perfect size for a baby dill. Another good thing about these is they don't have the cucumber little prickles on them. So, like I said, I've never grown these before, so I'm not quite sure how they're gonna pickle, but we're gonna find out. But the main reason I did grow these is because I have a tendency to not get out fast enough and pick enough when I'm growing regular, like Boston or the pickling cucumbers, and get out here and they're huge. These tend to not grow quite as fast. The best way to get the most harvest out of cucumbers is to come out and pick every day, because the bigger the fruit is, the more it tells the plant, hey, we've got some seed coming on. And I mean, every plant, that's their job, is to make more seeds. So the more you let, like this cucumber is going to take more energy than this cucumber. So if I leave this cucumber on and it keeps growing, it's going to tell the plant, hey, we've done our job. And then the smaller ones, like these little tiny ones here, they're not going to want to get much bigger because all of the energy is going into saving the seed. Now, whether or not a cucumber has put on enough fruit or not, there just comes a point where they just stop growing. I put in 5 seeds on this side and 5 seeds on that side. That'll be plenty for us. But if you only had enough room for, say, 2 or 3 plants, and that's the max area that you could have, what you would want to do is, as these are starting to die back, well, before they start dying back, you'd want to go ahead and get more seeds planted. That way, as soon as these start showing signs that they're about done, you would already have little plants growing, and you could just put those in, and these will actually cover the little seedlings long enough for them to get a good healthy start. Me, I have a tendency to want to get as much done and just be done. So that's why I've planted so many at once, because otherwise you're going to get a handful here and a handful there, and then you have to figure out different ways to preserve them or keep them. This way I can pick a whole bunch at one time, do a whole bunch at one time, and then I'm done with cucumbers for the year. So one of the first things I did once I got the cucumbers in is I got them all washed and got them rinsed off, and then I got them back in cool water so that I can keep them cool while I'm getting everything else done. I have the jars behind me, they're getting ready to boil. I want to go ahead and get started on my brine. Normally when I do canning, most of my recipes come from the Ball Blue book. This is pretty old. I don't even know how old this is, but I've had it for a good while, so it's got some age on it. But this is normally the recipe that I use. But pickling spices, I realized I did not have clove and I did not have mustard seed, and I like having both of those in our pickles, but I don't have those. So I went digging. Actually, I was looking for mustard seed is what I was doing, and I found this. This is Mrs. Wage's dill pickles. I've never used this. I've heard a lot of people using it, especially for salsa and stuff. Personally, I've never used it. I've always gone by the Blue Ball book. So this will be a first for me. So I'm just gonna go ahead and go off the directions. I've got to tweak things a little bit just because of some of the things that I've read about this. So I'm gonna tweak the recipe a little bit as we go, and I'll explain it. According to this, I need 7 1/3 cups of water and 3 1/3 cups of vinegar. Before I go any further, I want to talk about the water and the vinegar. Water, you want to make sure that you're not using chlorinated water. So if you use city water or something like that, make sure that you get go ahead and use bottled water or something. We actually, our tap, we have a filtered system in, so ours will be fine. We'll be able to use that. And then as far as the vinegar, I know some people know, but for those of you that are watching that do not know, there is a percentage on vinegar. And I know this has been in a lot of places, but I want to make sure if you're watching this video that I explain it to you. There is a difference in vinegar. There's actually percentages of vinegar, and the safe percentage that you want to use is 5% vinegar. And you need to look for that because from what I'm hearing, there's a lot of places that are starting to go to 4% vinegar, and that is not going to be working if you're using it for canning. So you want to make sure that you check the label and make sure that it is saying that it is 5%. 4%, not gonna work. I don't wanna bore you with the recipe, but basically this is water, vinegar, and a package of this. If you wanna do it off of this recipe, I'm gonna tweak it a little bit. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get the water, vinegar in the pot, and then I'll explain later how I'm gonna add other things to this. Okay, one thing you definitely want to do is cut the blossom end off. This end doesn't really matter. That's the end that you actually picked it off of the plant. This is where the blossom started. You just want to cut just enough of that off because there is actually a chemical that's in that will spread, and this will get kind of mushy and kind of gross. But there is a chemical that'll actually start breaking down the cell walls in this. So definitely want to get these cut off. Kidding me. Okay, some of these are slightly larger than what I am wanting for baby dills, but they will be perfect for dill slices for any type of sandwiches. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these cut up. I thought, well, while I'm cutting it up, I'll go ahead and talk to you all. Now, dork check. I like history, like a lot. So pretty much about anything that I do, I always like to look up the historical background of it. And one of my favorite parts of history that I found about cucumbers was in the Roman times with Tiberius. Tiberius loved cucumbers, so much so that he expected a cucumber daily, which sounds great in theory, except for the fact that the area that they were in was not conducive to be growing cucumbers year round. And Tiberius was not a very friendly man, so the gardeners had to figure out pretty quick how to make that happen. Well, one of the things that they did was they planted on carts, I guess essentially what you would say, but they planted on carts, and then they would haul the cucumber plant, the whole plant, in and out. So if they were getting weird weather or whatever, they could, or if the weather started cooling off, they could bring the whole cart in, which prolonged the season. But as you know, cucumbers need sun to grow, so that only helped somewhat. That didn't help throughout the winter. That was the start of what we now call a greenhouse. It was basically the gardeners trying to keep Tiberius happy so that he could have his cucumbers daily. The gardeners would not allow women anywhere near cucumber plants because it was said that women around cucumber plants would either stunt the plants or kill the plant altogether. Now, my guess is because Tiberius is not known as a very friendly leader, that there must have been some bad seasons of cucumbers. So the gardener at the time was doing his best to protect his head and his life. and probably blamed it on a woman. Okay, so we have the slices ready, and then we have the smaller cucumbers ready. So now we're just waiting on the brine, and then I'll show you what I do and how I preserve the actual pickles. Okay, now just my opinion, I thought the mix pretty much tasted like a salt lick when I tried it. So I changed it up and I added 2 more cups of vinegar and 4 cups of water to the mix. I like how the mix tastes now. Before I thought, honestly, it just tastes like a salt lick. Okay, so now next I'm going to be adding the cucumbers. I'm using quart jars. And I'm using horseradish. Horseradish is good because it has tannins in it, and that will help keep the pickles crunchier. I did not know that. I actually learned that from some of my viewers that were nice enough to share that with me. So I just put a few of the horseradish leaves in. That will also give it extra flavor. And then, I don't know, it's probably about half a tablespoon of garlic. And then I'm just going to stuff these jars as much as I possibly can. And I will say I like to use the jars that have, like, you can see how it kind of has the shoulders. I like to use the one with like that. I don't like the straight up and down ones. I wish I had one here. I'm trying to hurry. But I like to use the ones with the shoulders because it just kind of helps hold it down even after it's done processing. It just kind of helps hold the pickles down underneath and keeps them in the brine, keeps them in the juice, keeps them going good. It never fails, no matter how much I think, okay, I'm gonna get a bunch stuffed in there. There is always room. Even more so with these little pickles. I'm trying to save the smallest ones so that I can shove them in there with a little extra butter. Okay, I think that's about all I'm getting in that one. And then next, I will add the brine, and I want to get it right up to the tips of those shoulders. Another important step that you want to make sure that you do, use plastic or wood, do not use metal, but you want to get in there and try to get all of the pockets of air out. You do not want those air pockets in there. You kind of jiggle the jar as you're pushing it in there. And then once you have the jar done, you want to make sure that you wipe the lid off. Broke. This is supposed to have a magnet. It's supposed to be able to pick the lids up out of there. So do not try this at home. Don't do that. It's a bad idea. Do as I say, not as I do. You don't want to over tighten the jars. I'm going to continue doing that for the rest of these jars, including the slicers, and then I will process them in the water bath for 15 minutes. I'm doing quarts. If you were doing pints, it's 10 minutes. So that's what's up next. Well, let me get the rest of these done. Okay, well, I managed to make a mess in the kitchen, so I'm gonna get all this cleaned up and I will show you what we got at the end of this. This is Angie. Be safe and God bless. There it is, the fruits of our labor. Not a whole lot, but more than what we did have.